Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to episode 6 of the Shloka learning course, and today's topic is practical techniques on how to memorize verses or shlokas. So, we have learned yesterday that understanding the sloka is very important, and we have gone through some of the methods we can use to understand. Basically, it all is based on observing the words of the shloka closely and seeing their meanings and seeing them in the context of previous verses or related verses, and trying to observe a pattern, whether it's a comparison, whether it's a description, and if it's a description, then what are the things that have been described, and trying to picturize them. If it's suppose Krishna's beauty, Krishna's form is being described, as the words are, suppose Barhavatamsam. So Barhavatamsam means the peacock feather. So to picturize, Krishna has the peacock feather on his head. So these things will help. So it's actually meant for that. It's meant for us to meditate on not only the form, then the instructions of Krishna. And when there are some examples given, analogy like changing of bodies is similar to changing of dresses. So we can actually picturize, how we're changing everyday dresses. So vasamsi, so vasamsi. So all these techniques we can use. And also, every time we change dress, we can remember that verse, Vasamsi Chirnani Yatha Vihaya. And in this way, there are several examples in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter, in the 10th chapter, where Krishna says, Rasoham Apsu Kaunteya, Prabhasmi Shashi Suryayo. So, I am the light of the sun and the moon, I am the taste of water, I am Om, and I am the ability in man. So, these things are not just for remembering and then keeping it in a silo, in a memory silo, but all the time bringing it out and observing the world through the lens of the Shastra. So that is called Shastra Chakshu. Shastra Chakshu means to see the world through the words of the Shastra. So that is basically it that we have learned yesterday. So today we will learn some practical techniques. Well, the way I learnt was attending the classes, attending the lectures, and then noting down, and then the same day going through all the list of verses and then taking them out in Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, wherever it is, and then trying to memorize before the end of the day. That was in the beginning, but lately I've not been following through with that same process. I should actually, by right, that's the best way. The same day, just go through the whole list of verses in the shlokas. But nowadays, when Sundar Prabhu, when he takes a class, then he quotes like about 50 verses, 50, 60 verses. So sometimes it's too overwhelming. I can understand that. But at the same time, we can choose at least the principal ones and slowly memorize them. And that's how I learned. We can also learn from, as we are reading Prabhupada's books. So in the purports, suppose we are reading Bhagavad Gita, and in the purports he quotes from different sources. So we can take note of those verses and learn them. And also, as we are reading, if we find an interesting verse that we can use for preaching, then we can take a note. It's always good to have a notebook, a kind of a tracker, to note down all the verses that we want to learn, and then actually act on it. If we just build up that list of verses to be learned, and it will just become an insurmountable list, and therefore we should act on them and at least go through them and try to memorize slowly. Of course, as you begin with this, you won't be as fast because it takes time to learn the language, the words, and it'll be a little slow. But at least 1 or 2 shlokas per week is definitely doable. It's just 4 lines. Like, let's start with the smallest verses in the Bhagavad Gita, Anushtup Chanda, which is 8 syllables a line. 4 lines like that. They are very, very small verses, like 213, for example. We have studied yesterday this verse. And somebody was asking actually 217. I did not see that comment. So he wrote it 3 times in the comments. So I only saw it after the whole session was finished. So he was asking for 217, that he could not understand this. Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya nakaschit kartum arhati. So it's quite a simple verse. So these length of verses, in 1 week, if we want to learn 1 verse, okay, let's take it to the bare minimum, 1 verse per week. So that if we go at a linear pace, 1 verse per week, in 52 weeks, in 1 year, we will have at least 52 verses in our arsenal. So that's a lot, right? So in 1 week, in 1 year, and actually it doesn't work linear. If you work on it regularly, it doesn't work linear. It actually grows a little more than linear. It grows like an exponential. Not really exponential. Exponential is a big word, but a little more than linear, because as you learn more and more verses, then it becomes easier for the memory to, our memory to work, and we become used to that learning process. That's why we should not give up that learning process at any time. So we try to memorize every time new verses. So in this way we increase the rate at which we learn also, and that is basically it. So we need to just practice, and you see the words, and then try to understand, and then try to understand the group of words, and then try to understand which part of the translation fits into that. Is the translation of which group of words. In this way, we can have a full understanding of the verse, and then always memorization comes after understanding. Don't try to memorize without understanding. You can memorize without understanding. Like with it, if you have the tune, like children, they learn the nursery rhymes. They may not fully understand what the words are, but the whole point of our learning here, the slokas, is that we have to understand them and be able to apply them in our lives. So, biggest suggestion is first understand, and then follow through with the memorization. And as we memorize, so there are different techniques that we can employ. These are, well, I found them from others, like on the internet, where they teach how to memorize things for studying for exams, for example. So those same tips will also apply for us, and their so-called scientific study, they have come up with what is the best way. so that in the least time we can learn the maximum. So I've just done a little bit of research on that of about a month or two ago, and I have been wanting to implement that system for my own learning, which after the lockdown has started hasn't really materialized because I've been doing these sessions, and so I'd never really put that system in place for myself, but this is what I intend to do from now on. And it's a very systematic approach of learning things, and especially we can use that for learning shlokas. So, but just a quick note before we dive into the process of memorization. So, about understanding, I just wanted to say another few words. Is that understanding means, how do we know that we understand a verse? The best way to test ourselves whether we understood the verse or not is if I can explain that verse in simple language to a 5-year-old. Can I make a 5-year-old understand what this verse is about? So basically it's like, it's not about just trying to have a picture, but actually can I explain it? Can I put it into words? So of course we can verbatim, memorize the entire translation of the verse, but then do I understand the translation? Do I understand the translation? So if somebody asks a question about that, will I be able to answer? So if we are not clear about how, suppose, okay, let's take yesterday's example, right? Okay, dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara prapte dhiras satrana mohyate. So the embodied soul at dehantara prapti, okay, you have supposed verbatim, you have regurgitated the whole translation. You quoted the sloka and then you regurgitated, exactly vomited the whole translation as it is. So now if somebody asks, so dehantara praptir, praptir means to get, to achieve, to receive or something like that. So we get a new body at the end of life. Okay, that is understandable. But then here it is compared that just as we have been getting new bodies, and just as our soul has been passing through bodies of kaumara, that means about boyhood, youthhood and old age, similarly I get into another body, I get another body at death. So have we been getting bodies? Have we been prapti, that prapti word that is used, have we been getting those bodies in this lifetime? Because I don't get a new body, I'm just in the same body, it's just growing old, right? So is the body growing old, or what is exactly happening? So do I understand it? Can I explain if somebody asks that question? So this is what understanding means. So I have to understand in depth. So the thing is, Prabhupada explained this, that it is not our body, we generally, colloquially, we just say we are growing old. That is the general way of saying. But scientifically, we are getting new bodies every moment. It's actually a change of body. So even medically speaking, it's a fact that our cells of the body die and then are replaced by new cells. So it is said that over a course of 7 years, our entire, whatever cells that were there in my body 7 years ago have been progressively been replaced, and now I don't have a single cell in my body that was there 7 years ago. So practically, that's a complete change of body. If we look at it even medically. So that's actually a fact. So we are actually changing body every second, but it's so imperceptible that we see it as one continuous thing. Like, back in the days when I was a kid, when I was like maybe say 12 years old, we used to have this flip book, that flip book. So when we, that time of course it's now prohibited, Coca-Cola, but when we drink Coca-Cola and then when we buy that can or bottle, then we get this crown, those crowns, those caps. Then you collect those caps and then there's some picture on it, and then you collect a few of them and then you can exchange them for a flip book or some kind of a souvenir item like that. And when you get this flip book, so it's about some cricketer, suppose say Sachin Tendulkar, he's hitting the 6, or Saurav Ganguly hitting the 6, and it is actually when you flip the whole book, in each page of the book is one pose and the next pose and the next pose and the next pose and the next pose. So each page is a still, but then when you flip it, it looks like continuous change. Actually, he runs down the pitch and he hits it for a 6. So that's basically how our body is changing. So it is a still every second, just like a movie. Prabhupada said, what is a movie? When the reel, when the, that film, that negative, that is being run. So actually it's all stills, it's just run. And then as it runs, it moves, the picture moves on the screen. So actually it's various stills that are being moved continuously. So similarly, over the tape, that tape is there and it moves the whole system. So time is such a mover that all these stills are there and then it is moving, and actually those are different bodies. Each still is actually a body, and over time imperceptibly we are changing. Imperceptibly is the word, because we don't perceive it. A person who comes back to us and after 10 years say, hey, you have grown tall, you have grown fat, you have grown thin, whatever it is. So they can see the change obviously, but our people, maybe our family, they may not be able to see the change because it's imperceptible. So in this way we are actually changing bodies, and similarly we would change body at the time of death. So in this way you would explain and make a layman understand that this verse, this 213 that is there. So in this way I have to question myself, okay, all these words mean this, word to word meaning, and then this group of words mean this, all right, fine, but do I understand the concept? And it's not a concept, it's a fact. So do I understand the rationale of behind this whole thing? So there is prapti, so we get a new body at the time of death. Okay, that is quite understandable, you get a new body. But do we get a new body even in here? Because it is saying as we get new bodies like Kaumaram, Yavanam, similarly we get another body. But do we even get those new bodies? So yes, so that is the explanation for this. Prithviraj Prabhu is giving some psychological input here. Psychological study, what is that? We call it persistence of vision. 1/16 second I can catch, beyond that it seems to be moving. Okay, so so actually even in film, if you go to, because I have been doing these YouTube videos and stuff, so I have learned a little bit about the motion, how motion works, and the rate at which the film moves is 24 frames per second. That means in 1 second 24 frames actually move per second. And when it's a slow motion, for example, like a really slow motion, then you have to shoot it at 120 frames per second and slow it down 5 times, and then you will have this 24 frames per second speed. But because it was 120 frames, to move those 120 frames will take 5 seconds, but actually in reality it took only 1 second. So the speed is like 1/5 of the total speed. So that is slow motion. So for slow motion you have to shoot it at a higher frame rate, and then you have to spread it across. You have to spread it across the actual frame rate of the movie that you want to be shooting in. So I hope you're getting. I hope you're getting this point. So basically, it's like so you get the point. So 24 frames are moving in 1 second, and that's what we see, and that's what we see in real life as well. Why movies are done in 24? Because that is the most natural movement. If you do it 60 frames per second video, if you watch a 60 frames per second video, you will get giddy. I don't know if you have noticed all these things, but if you watch a video that is 60 frames per second, it is so clear, it is so high def, it's like so too clear. It's like too clear. There's no motion blur. When my hand moves like this, there's a blur. That is actually natural. When we see something moving, we see a blur. But at 60 frames per second, you won't see a blur. You will see everything so too clearly, way too clear than our natural eyes. So that will make our vision giddy. You actually will get giddy after some time when you watch the 60 frames per second video. Anyway, I'm going to another topic altogether. So basically, So we have this imperceptible movement and getting new bodies every moment. So if we understand in this way, with all these analogies that Prabhupada gave and all these things, yes, now I understood the verse. Okay, it's not that I realized the verse yet, because if somebody may pass away in my family, I may still cry. So it's not a realization yet, because dhiras tatra na muhyati. It's not about just understanding, like in a scientific way. Oh, this is what is happening. But then when it actually happens with somebody close to us, and then we cry, that means I have not realized yet. So all those affections, all those feelings, all those moments that we spend together, and then we remember all those things and we cry. So these are all actually signs of weak-mindedness. That's what Krishna says. Kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvotishtha parantapa. He said, Arjuna, you give up all this petty weakness of heart. So it's a weakness of heart. So that is the stage we have to come to, not just like understanding, and that is first stage, but then it has to develop. So how to develop that? So we have to become strong in our sadhana. So it's not, so all these things are not about just learning like a textbook and then becoming a physics scientist, some theorist, what is that, theoretical scientist. No, that's not the point here. So it's all about, yes, putting all our intelligence to understand it, but then observe in life, like there are so many shlokas, for example, how family life is a lot of distraction and a lot of encumbrance. There's so many encumbrances in family life. So all these there are many shlokas that yan maithunad sukam hetucham kanduyanena karayo riva dukkha dukkham. So many verses are there that are mentioning the miserable condition of family life. So we have to also observe. It's not just about Bhagavatam always says about it like this only, but actually it's not that bad, after all. So that means we don't have even complete faith in the shloka and in the shastra. So if we find anything better in this family life or in this material world, that means we are in the illusion. So of course it does not mean that we have to always hate what we are doing and where we are, and not like that, but we have to understand. Out of duty we have to do everything still. And if the family is devotees and everybody is cooperative, that's well and good. But still the attachment is there. And at the time of death, because of my cooperative family members, I may think of them and die, and then I may become one of the family members, or I may again get into material affection and again take another birth. So either way, we have to cultivate the detachment, and eventually all this has to come. Of course, it is not overnight. So when these verses are there, we have to understand in detail, we have to contemplate, like put all our intelligence to understand each and everything. And if somebody asks a question, can I answer it? So that's what, there is a scientist called, I'm just quoting this mundane scientist, but it is an observation that was made by this, it is called a Feynman technique. Feynman technique means, it is coined by Richard Feynman. He was a scientist, physicist and all that, into quantum physics and all that. So he says, if you understand something, you should be able to explain in simple language to a layman, to a child. So Prabhupada, if you see Prabhupada all the way, how he explains each and every aspect of philosophy, like he's explaining to a child, like even a child can understand what Prabhupada is talking about. Of course, not maybe a 5-year-old, but a little, it's just the word used, 5-year-old, but actually person who has decent intelligence, like he can understand. So like this, when we are drinking water, rasoham apsu kaunteya, Krishna is the taste of water. We can always remember, that's the practice of remembering verses. So basically, a person of reasonable intelligence, can you explain to him if we ask this question? And you have to think of the question even before that. It's not about passing a test, or if he asks a question, can I remember? No, but do I understand? Do I get the question first of all? So I should get the question. So for me it should be very clear. Of course, there are many things in Shastra that we cannot comprehend, like how the universe came, and that we have to accept. We have to accept. And those also, whatever is revealed in the scriptures, we have to understand, because Krishna revealed those because we can understand those. Not everything, but to an extent. Like for example, Ramayana. Ramayana in Brahmaloka, in the Brahmaloka, Brahma's planet, it is of the length of 1 billion verses. 1 billion with a B, not M, B. And here in human society, it is only 25,000 verses. So how many more verses are there in Ramayana that we cannot even comprehend? For human society, these 25,000 is enough, that kind of. So that much is revealed so that because we can understand that much. At least comprehend to an extent, that much. The rest of the things we may not be able to even be able to comprehend. So whatever is revealed, that's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 9, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. These two words are very important. Vetti means knows and tattvataha means in reality. That means, Prabhupada many times explained this. Vetti tattvataha means we have to know with full absorption and attention and not just and I kind of know what is Krishna. No, that is not enough. We have to become absorbed. Mayarpita mano buddhir. Okay, let's read this translation. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not upon leaving the body take his birth again in this material world but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. This one who knows. How do we know? Whatever is revealed by Krishna, that we will know. Whatever is revealed by Srila Prabhupada, we will know. So that much at least we should know. Whatever is revealed, that much we should contemplate and understand everything. So vetti tattvataha. Tattvataha means in truth, in reality, in depth. And what was the other verse I was just telling? I just lost. So evam yo vetti tattvataha. So we have to know in truth. Then is when we will understand. So the other verse I was thinking about was, I just lost that train of thought. Yeah, anyway. Okay, let's just take this verse itself. So now, Janma and Karma. So in Tattvataha, in truth, what we should know in truth? His Janma, his Karma. So all his pastimes, all his birth, which is not an ordinary birth. Yes, he has a mother and father. But then if somebody asks, hey, how come Krishna has mother and father? That means somebody was before Krishna. How come he has? So then what do we explain? So we should not be just satisfied, that okay, Krishna has mother and father. Okay, this is how a usual Hindu would know Krishna. But we should understand, how come Krishna has father? If he is the Adi Purusham, Govindam Adi Purusham, how does he have a father and mother? Oh yes, so the explanation is that, okay, he can come without father and mother. Of course, like Narasimhadev, he came out from a pillar. So he can come from anywhere. And Varaha, he came out from the nostril of Lord Brahma. He can come from anywhere. And he's already everywhere. So he can manifest himself from anywhere if he wants. And why did he have the parents then? Because those parents were actually are devotees and were devotees in their previous lives, and they prayed to Krishna that we want you as our son. So they prayed to Lord Vishnu for like 12,000 years and with severe austerities, Sutapa and Prishni. So that's how they got next life Krishna as their son. So in this way, so Krishna chooses. So if some devotee wants to serve Krishna as a parent, because that is also a service. Service doesn't mean only I am a servant and you are master. That is one relationship. But the mother also serves the child, right? So that is another relationship. So for that relationship to exist, that devotee must be having the mood of a mother. So if somebody wants to serve Krishna as a mother, then he will accept that devotee as a mother and he will become her son. And also when Krishna was born, he was first he came into the mind of Vasudeva, and then he was transferred into the mind of Devaki, and then from mind of Devaki to the womb of Devaki. There was not even ordinary sexual relationship. So you see how we have to understand all these details of Krishna's birth and Krishna's all incarnations, not only Krishna, his other incarnations. What about Ram? What about Narsimha? What about Varaha? What is Kurma, Matsya? All incarnations, and so we have to know Janma, Karma, and Karma, his pastimes. Sometimes are bewildering. Pastimes means not just he's playing with the cowherd boys or he's dancing with the cowherd girls. Those are also pastimes. But even his creation, his everything that Krishna is doing is a Leela. So how is he managing everything? So the whole Krishna Tattva, Jai Krishna Tattvavit Shai Guru Hoy. So we have to understand the Krishna Tattva in Tattvataha, in reality. So understanding is first and then is memorization. So always try to understand the whole thing. Of course, sometimes you may not be able to understand, but try to understand as much as possible. And then if you don't understand, you can always ask the devotees, or you can do a little bit of search in the apps that you have, the Pocket Vedas or the Veda Base, or even in PrabhupadaBooks.com. All these sources are there. You can actually do a little bit of research. Vani Quotes or Vedabase.io, and all these websites are there. So you can do a little bit of research of what else has been told in this regarding this, and then try to understand the whole concept. And if you can't, then the devotees can help you with that. You can ask the devotees, but try your own also first. So understanding first, and then going to memorization. So now in the memorization, what we usually are used to in schools and how we learn stuff. So this is also part of what I've researched on how to remember things. It may be a material research, but I'm just trying to use that for memorizing slokas as well, and it's a very effective way of remembering. So now, usually how we think about remembering, or if we remember how we studied for exams, we usually try to cram everything, like try to read this and try to read that, and then we try to put as many things in our mind as possible. But actually, scientific study, it also shows that the best way to learn is to dig out what we have read. Suppose you want to remember something that you have read. You read a paragraph, and then now immediately close the book and try to see, do I remember everything that was told here? It doesn't have to be verbatim, but do I understand what was being told in that paragraph? What did I just read? Then if you see yourself, you may forget actually a few details of what you have just read. Okay, do I remember? Okay, then I try to reconstruct. So as we reconstruct, that's when our brain is actually working. So when our brain works, and that's when we remember. Of course, all this by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. We cannot at any time try to remember and become a big. This is not about becoming a big pandit, becoming a big memorization hero, and that's not the whole point. The whole point is to memorize, but then use those verses and then guide ourselves in our own life. And then if in the process, as we meet others, we can guide them also. But the main thing is to guide our own self. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, beat your mind 100 times with a slipper, with a sandal in the morning, and then 100 times in the night with a broomstick. That means that we have to shasan means chastise our mind, because our mind is always going into this pride mode. I'm a big time, I'm a big deal, all these things. So we have to always curb our mind. So we have to have these slokas. These slokas are the whip, shasan, shastra, sha, astra, shas dhatu. Shas means shasan, to control. So to control, the shastra is there to control. So basically, more than anything else, it is for preaching to ourselves that we have to learn this shastra. So that we immediately, when we have certain, pride or anything, or anger, or offensive behavior, whatever it is, immediately we try to correct ourselves with all these instruments, with these shastric slokas. Also contemplating on Krishna's philosophy and everything, in all ways, in controlling ourselves and also seeing everything through the lens of Shastra. That's the whole point. So now, So learning things usually is understood as putting things into our brain, but actually when you work your brain to bring out what you actually learned, that's when it will stick. So for example, if one wants to build a muscular body, then he has to go to the gym or some workout. Then he has to actually move his muscles, and he has to strain his muscles. He has to strain his muscles, and then they will actually become a little weak when you strain a bit. But then over time, like 2 days later, those strained parts will become stronger than before. And as he does more and more, then he can lift more weights, or he can do more push-ups or pull-ups or whatever it is. So as we strain the muscle a little more, the more it works, the more stronger it becomes. So same thing with our memory, almost the same thing. So we need to always keep it active, and we have to, usually it sounds productive to take in as much. I know, yes, I'm studying. No, the more you put inside the mind, it is just, when we are reading, it's mostly passive. It's passive. We are not using our mind to bring out something. That's why Prabhupada said, preach. Whatever it is, speak your realization. He said in the class, when you're giving a lecture, you don't have to be a self-realized soul. You speak your realization of what you have understood. So what it actually effectively does is, you have to put into words what you understood. So, and sometimes, and what you remembered. So all these things, when we're giving class, in the beginning, when I was first asked to give a class, it was, I still remember, I think I gave the class on 2:11, I think, chapter 2, text 11, I think. That's what I did, probably. And it was very difficult. I mean, yes, the philosophy is understood, but then when we're trying to explain, it doesn't come so smoothly. It doesn't flow. So, but it is okay to be difficult. It is okay to be not perfect, because that's how everybody starts. So then we have to, even if nobody is there, we try to explain. Just speak in the air. Prabhupada says, if nobody is there, speak to the four walls. So as we practice more and more about explaining it, not just, yeah, I kind of understand. No, put it into words, because that's when we actually practice to understand really. So by speaking, the more we speak, the more we actually understand, the more it retains in our memory. And same, that's why Prabhupada wanted us to write for the magazine and bring it out, not just keep it. And actually, it doesn't do any good if we keep it. So every time we have to bring it out. So when I said that example, that okay, I read this paragraph, and then suppose I'm reading Krishna book, and then I read this paragraph. Okay, try to remember. Okay, what happened in the story? Okay, that's why I can't remember stories. You see, why? Because I haven't. This is something I just recently discovered, this way of learning. But usually I was always doing that. I would just read. As I would probably read a novel, just to. Of course, that is also good. We can also read it like that. I'm not saying every time you have to do this. Sometimes we don't have that much. It's late in the night, or we don't have that much energy to put into retrieving the information and kind of speaking out into words. So it doesn't matter. I mean, we can just even read, even otherwise, and we can feel the bliss of reading Krishna conscious literature of Prabhupada. But if we want to practice remembering and practice speaking it out, then it is good to practice like this, that you close it and okay, what do I remember in this paragraph? Okay, this. Then maybe we will not remember this. Oh, what exactly happened? How did this happen from that? What was the missing link? Then we open and then see, oh, okay, this one. So okay, again reconstruct the whole thing. Oh yeah, okay, now I understood. Okay, what was the flow of events? So in that way, or it can be like a story, like Krishna book, or it can be like a philosophical paragraph which is explaining something, and we may read it and then nothing goes into our head probably, and we try reading it again. Okay, then try to close it and try to understand what was said and how to understand this thing. So of course some things are beyond our understanding. We just have to accept, read and accept. But still there is, Prabhupada has explained everything very nicely. So we should understand as much as has been explained, we have to understand. And then comes this thing, scientists call it active recall. So basically it's to test yourself. Always test yourself. Suppose you have learned a shloka today. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namo hyati. Very good. So you have many times you have tried to, you actually first see, okay, janma karma chame divyam. Then you go through the first line again, janma karma chame divyam. And try to understand also the meaning of the janma karma chame divyam. Okay, janma karma. Janma is birth, karma is activities, cha means and, divyam. So all of them are transcendental. Transcendental birth and activities. Janma karma chame divyam. Evam yo vetti tattvataha. Cha me divyam, sorry, cha me. Me means my, of mine, you see. Me means of mine. So Krishna's birth and activities are transcendental. It's not like our birth and activities. So do I even understand that? What does it mean by Krishna's birth and activities are transcendental? So how is it different from my activities and my birth? Okay, in my birth, I don't choose my parents. I'm just forced by my past karma. But Krishna doesn't have karma. He has no reactions that he is taking birth so that he did some sinful reaction and then now he has to suffer in this world, or he did something pious and then now he has to enjoy in this world. No, Krishna has no such thing. He comes here out of his own causeless mercy. And do I even understand the word causeless mercy? So all these things, that's why I have to understand. Causeless mercy means the mercy doesn't have a cause. It's by his own free will. We don't deserve it. We don't deserve that mercy, but it is given causeless. It is given by the Lord. So that is a causeless mercy. So out of his causeless mercy, he comes into this world and to help us. And so his birth is not like our birth. He doesn't change his body. In the 4th chapter, 6th verse, Ajopisan avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropisan prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. So I come by my own internal potency, yogamaya. And he says, athava, what is that? No. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna. You see this? Tani aham veda sarvani natvam vetta parantapa. 4.5, chapter 4, text 5. The personality of Godhead said, Krishna said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. You, Arjuna, cannot remember all those births you have taken with me. We have both taken many births together, but I remember all of them. So that's the difference of his birth compared to our birth. So that means, Prabhupada explains in the purport that when we change our body, then we forget what was, in the previous body. So if Krishna remembers everything, that means he doesn't change his body. His body is always the same in each and every incarnation. It's not that he accepts another new body. No. So his same body, transcendental body, whether he comes as a tortoise or whether he comes as a boar, whether he comes as a Narasimha, half man, half lion, or whether he comes as Krishna, Rama, or Buddha, or Kalki, his body never changes. Although the shape may change, in quality it doesn't change at all. The same body. So he can have multifarious forms. Advaitam, you see, this verse is quoted in the purport. You see, Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam, anantarupam. And although anantarupam, Advaitam. That means he has millions of forms, but Advaitam. He is one without a second. That means he is not becoming many. He is the same person, but he can become many also at the same time. But Advaitam, he is the same person. So, in this way we have to understand his birth. Oh, his birth is transcendental. His activities are transcendental. His activities are all lila. They are not forced by karma. Here our activities are forced by karma. And our birth is forced by karma. We did not choose how we would look. We would not choose how much intelligence we would have, in which family, in which country, in which gender, which species. Nothing we chose. We were forced. So that is our janma. Whereas his janma, he chooses, even his own parents. So in this way, we have to understand janma karma chame divyam in depth. Evam yoveti tattvataha, those who understand in truth, in reality, in depth. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti. Actually, that is the Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti. Although it is in the next line, that is full together. Tyaktva deham means after having given up the body. Deham means body. That deham we have already seen in the 2nd chapter. Deha, dehinosmin yatha dehe. So all this deha, 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 so many times we have seen in the second chapter. Deha means body. So that should be imprinted in our mind. So tyaktva deham. Tyaktva deham means after having given up the body, punarjanma naiti. Punarjanma. Janma means birth. Punar means again, rebirth. Punarjanma means rebirth. Naiti. Na iti. Na eti. No. Actually, never attains. You see? Na eti. Eti means attains. Na iti. Punarjanma naiti. Mam eti. So, he does not attain repeated birth and death, but he attains mam eti. He attains me. That means he attains Krishna. That means no more rebirth in the Vaikuntha. So, in this way we have to understand, and then once you have memorized it, all well and good, one day or 2 days later, you test yourself, you will completely forget the verse. This will happen. So, it is not that because I have just memorized, not only 1-2 days, suppose morning I memorized the verse, by evening you will forget. That's the way our memory is. So, we have to, again, all the time, okay, this is called the forgetting curve. This is also some scientific study. So, I'm quoting some mundane scientific study, but it helps to understand the concept of how our memory kind of works. There's something called the forgetting curve. I'll just show you that. No, not this. Wait. Okay, here. The forgetting curve. This is what happens when we learn something. The moment on the bottom, on the x-axis, on the horizontal axis is the time in days, and on the vertical axis is the retention. Now, when we actually learn it, okay, I have learned the verse. Okay, yes, we will like pump our fists. Yes, I have learned this verse. But then at that point, our remembrance retention is 100%. We remember the verse. Fine, good. Immediately, it drops. So in the morning, if we get it, and then we are yes, all celebrating, and then by the evening, dehinosmin. What was that? Dehinosmin, dehe, yatha. Oh, yatra or yatha. We forget. So that is a forgetting curve, and exponentially we forget. That's a forgetting curve. So it goes down to zero. So what we need to do is this scientist, what is his name? Forgot. I think I wrote it somewhere. Wait a second. I don't know if I written it. Let's see if I have written it. No. Yeah, Hermann Ebbinghaus. Okay, in the 1800s, 1850 to 1909. So anyway, this scientist has come up with this whole forgetting curve thing. So we forget like that. It's a forgetting curve. So he actually experimented with himself, and so what he did, he forgot what he learned, and then he tried another method where he would interrupt that forgetting curve or combat that forgetting curve by doing this. So forget those letters and phone and smartphone and whatever it is. So you see that in the beginning when he just learnt it, it's 100%, and then it's decreasing, it's going down. If you see the line, if you extrapolate that line, it is going all the way to 0 by day 3. But then at day 1, when the memory is already down that much, then he again remembered it. Actually, we can do this ourselves as well. So suppose you learn today, and then tomorrow morning, I don't remember half of it. Okay, again, try to remember as much as possible. Just make your brain work. Don't immediately see the book, what it was. Then our mind is not working, our brain is not working. So work the brain and try to get out as much out as possible. And when that's it, that you can't get any more out of it, then you see the book. Okay, what was that word? Okay, let me just see. Oh, that was, dehe kaumaram. Okay, kaumaram. Kaumaram means, childhood. Okay, that's it. So in that way, when I again associate all the words with their meanings, and then again draw the whole picture. Okay, what is happening here? The changing body, that whole diagram, that is coming from this verse. So that is like that. We have to picturize everything. Every verse we have to start just like that. Changing body. I don't know if you. I think many of you would know, but maybe some of you. I don't know if you are new. You may not know, but most devotees, they know changing bodies. That stages of life, like small boy all the way to when he dies. All so many stages. So that is the picturization of this shloka 213. So that in the same way, for every single shloka, we have to try to picturize what is being explained in the shloka. Try to understand. And if it is a relatable incident in our lives, like changing of bodies is like changing of dresses, or if that is something which I do every day, actually that is exactly why Krishna mentioned that example, because we do that every day. So Krishna is also trying to make it easy for us, explaining with so many analogies and so many examples. He's explaining that whole concept of reincarnation. So if that is relatable in my daily life, okay, when I'm doing that, this has to be remembered. So that becomes a cue for you to, okay, now remember that verse. So in this way, and when we are drinking water, okay, rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi sashi suryayo. Whenever we see sunlight, okay, prabhasmi sashi suryayo. Okay, asmi means I. Of course, I am not the light of the sun and the moon. I am in complete darkness myself. So Krishna is saying rasoham apsu. Rasoham, rasaha aham means I am the taste of water. When we say rasoham apsu kaunteya, oh, I am the taste of water. Oh, I am the taste of water. This is how the Mayavadis think. That's why they are foolish. But who is speaking this? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So he is rasoham apsu kaunteya. That means we are quoting him. So Krishna is the taste of water, not me. So in this way, when we understand and give ourselves these cues to remember all these shlokas, it becomes easier. So interrupt that forgetting curve, combat that forgetting curve. So when you interrupt it and then learn back again it goes to 100%. But this time, you see the curve here. The slope of the curve is not as steep as the first one. It takes longer to forget. And then after 2 days, again he tried to remember. Again, if you try to remember this, okay, maybe we kind of forget, but we may not forget as badly as the first time. It's a little better now. Or we forgot the same amount as we did last time, but over a longer period of time rather than a shorter period of time. So our rate of forgetting has become a little slow just by doing it twice. Now, when our rate is at maybe 40% or 60%, I remember, but the other 40% I don't, then again try to bring out as much as possible. And then when you can't, open the book. What was that word? Okay, this one. All right, now I get it. So when you do that, then it again goes to 100%. And what exactly happens at the time? You see the third curve. It's even. You see where it is going, the third curve, and it's going almost. You see, it's the memory is retained. You remember for much longer time. And then the fourth time. So when you learn something, then the next day, and then 3 days later, and then 1 week later, and then 1 month later, when you interrupt the curve, and again make it 100%, and then this rate of forgetting will be much lower. Of course, in the beginning, you can actually repeat more than this, because you will only learn a few of those verses. Suppose you are learning, maybe now you have learned maybe 5 verses, 5 slokas. Memorize all those 5 slokas, whatever you knew. Memorize. Repeat them, if you can repeat them out of memory. So you can repeat this every day, and you don't have to sit down in a place, okay, this is my shloka memorization time, do not disturb, close the door and put do not disturb sign, and then now is my shloka memorization. No, it doesn't have to be that way. So if you do that, maybe it will not be sustainable, because maybe you won't find the time where you can actually sit down. Maybe you are working, and of course now you are in lockdown, you have maybe a little more time. But once everything is lifted and then people go back to their regular lives, then you may not be able to have the time to sit down again, for lengthy periods of time. So make up as you are. Suppose you are doing your bathing, while bathing you can recite some of the slokas and check them off, checklist, check them off. Okay, I have memorized this. So as you're bathing or as you're dressing yourselves up, in fact, I would do this. how I learn when I don't get time, to sit down or something. Usually I don't get. So how I'm like the other day, I think a few months ago, I like bragged about myself that I memorized the Mukundamala Stotra. The Mukundamala Stotra had 53 verses, 53 slokas, and by Krishna's grace, by Prabhupada's mercy, we memorized all of them. So, and they're very long verses as well. So now, I was a little bit happy that I could do it, but the thing is this: how did I learn those verses, and when did I learn? When I would get up, as I would go to the bathroom and get my shower done, I would start reciting already. So what verses I knew, I started reciting all of them. Then once I came out, as I was dressing up, putting on my dhoti, then I just opened the phone and then put the next one, the new shloka, and it was there. And then as I was putting on the dhoti, I was trying to learn the other shloka. Then by the time I put tilak, I'm already done with the new shloka. Of course, this is after so many years of practicing, but yeah, in the beginning it won't be as fast. You cannot memorize the shloka at that speed, but you can actually start like that. So when you're doing your things, you already memorize at the time. I mean, you repeat from memory whatever you have learned, and then like when you get these gaps of time, capture them. Just look out when there is a gap of course, it's not that run away from service. Do all the service that is assigned, and then after that, if you have some gaps of time and here and there, whatever, don't just let it pass without gaining something from that time. So we can pull up a verse. Okay, what was that verse? Okay, so always keep a list of verses that you would want to learn. So at hand, at any time, at any given time, if you want to pull up, maybe it's in your phone, a list. It can be a series like Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 or chapter 2, or maybe the principal slokas of chapter 1, chapter 2, like that. And then, okay, I have done maybe out of 10, I have done maybe 4 I have memorized, but okay, now I have to memorize next. At the next opportunity that I would get, slightest opportunity, I should get to the 5th one. So when there is some waiting time here and there, whatever it is, I can take out on my phone. If you do not have the app, please download the Pocket Vedas app. It costs maybe 30 Singapore dollars or something. I don't know how much it costs in Indian rupees. Maybe it's 800 rupees, 1,000. I don't know how much it costs. In Singapore, it's about 31 something. You can download that. It's a good tool which can be on your phone itself, and on the phone you can actually take out, and then you can try to memorize the shloka there itself. So that's a very good system. In fact, I did a YouTube video on my channel way back. It's like a year back maybe, on 3 tips for traveling devotees, and one of them is like memorizing shlokas. So you should of course have a list beforehand. So every time you encounter some verse that you can learn, that you should learn, you feel like learning it, okay, that is a good verse that can be used in preaching or that can be memorized. Capture it, put it in a list, like a wish list of all the verses that you would want to learn, and next time you get an opportunity, okay, get that out and then try to memorize it, and then try to understand it, try to memorize it. You don't have to go and do a big research, do I understand everything about this verse or every question that comes up. As long as you understand the word to word meaning and then the group of words, and like you can get a picture of, you may not able to fully answer. If somebody asks a question like Dehinosmin yatha dehe, that question may not even occur to you in the beginning. It's okay. At least learn it, and then you can always, we can always refine our learning over time. It's not that once you've learned, it has to be perfect the first time. It doesn't have to be. It will not be anyway. At every point of time, we can always learn newer and newer depths to the same shlokas. So always remember that you can always refine your learning later. So you don't have to like completely understand every single angle of that whole. No, although I may have sounded like that a while ago, but try your best, and then and then get on with it, and get on with memorizing it, and maybe if you come to me, maybe I'll question you just to test. So like that. So in this way we can learn, and you can progressively learn over time and deepen our understanding of the same verse that we have maybe memorized a year ago or 2 years ago. And then as much as you use it, now some verses will just never go out of memory. even if you want them to. Like Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. How can that verse go out of memory? Because over so many years Prabhupada always quoted that. So the more times we hear it, the more times we chant it, the more times we use it, the chance of forgetting is zero. It is lesser and lesser and lesser to the point of almost zero. So, like we remember, like all those nursery rhymes. I don't remember. I just remember 2 or 3 of them. But we remember over so many years. Because we repeat it so many times that even now, twinkle twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are. It still stays in the memory. So. Same way with shlokas. So as much as we use it more and more and more and more, it just cannot fade. But if we don't use it, oh yes, I have memorized this verse. Then after 5 days, I don't even know that I memorized this verse. Which verse was it that I memorized? It can even become like that. Many times it happened to me. Many times. So always remember that. Interrupt the forgetting curve. This combating the forgetting curve is something very important. You may say this is some mundane fellow's knowledge. Yeah, but this helps us to understand, kind of give a graphical understanding of how our brain works, and we can use that knowledge to this is actually a fact. This is exactly how our brain works. It forgets over time, and we need to interrupt, and then as much as we use it, and when we are chanting also the shlokas, as we are saying the words, the meanings of those words should automatically create the picture in our mind already while chanting them. Don't just make it a string of words. It has to lead to that. Always you have to be in touch with that understanding of the verse. Always. So that is very important. So don't lose the touch with the understanding of the verse, and in that way you active recall. This is called what the scientists say, active recall. That means you actively make your brain bring out what was put inside before. So that's when we actually try to bring out, that's when we learn. And this is called this repetition, repeating after 1 day and then after 3 days, after 1 week. That is their style. That they called it this. They call it the spaced repetition. That means you repeat it at spaced intervals, like at each time the interval should be longer than before, so that you allow yourself to forget a little bit. And then when you try to remember it back again, then your brain works hard to bring it back again. And then when that working hard happens, that's when your retention will actually be very strong. So that's what they say. But I would say in our Krishna consciousness, we try to remember every time. But of course, one thing is that when it becomes easy to remember, we have to again challenge ourselves to the next step. So another verse. So if I remember, suppose I have practiced 5 verses, and I very well I can repeat those verses. Very well I can chant those verses without a mistake. Now it has become easy for me to chant those verses, and that's when we will stop. Our growth in our memorization will stop. We have to give it another challenge. Okay, next verse. So it has to always be in that challenge mode. So we're always learning and learning. We're not at any time stagnant. Which is kind of what happened with me over the last 1.5 months. Did not learn much new verses. I've learned a few here and there, but not as many as I would want to or like to. So it is not good to keep it stagnant. So try to always have newer things to remember, and then always remember. And then this spaced repetition thing will come into effect. Especially when you have too many verses, and when you know like hundreds of verses or thousands of verses, or maybe even tens of verses, maybe say 80 verses you have memorized. You may say, oh, that is a lot. Yeah, you will come to that. Don't think it's a lot. Bhagavad Gita has 700. 80 is nothing. Bhagavatam has 18,000. Chaitanya Charitamrita has 11,555. So there's so many more to learn. And even in the purports, if you count all those verses in the purports and here and there, the whole Prabhupada's books, our lifetime is not enough. So don't put 80 on a pedestal. Oh, that is a lot. No, we have to come to that. So anyway, in the beginning it may appear a lot, but it will happen as you put this thing into practice. It will come to that. It will come. So if you chant, if you learn just two shlokas per week, that's not at all much. That's like, for me, even for anyone, it will be a bare minimum. If actually one puts a little bit effort, it will be bare minimum. Or if you say 2 is too much, okay, 1 per week. Start off somewhere. 1 per week. Over a month, you know already 4 shlokas. That is good. It's better than 0. And then eventually it will increase. Then you will be able to learn 2 a week. And it will increase slowly. As you get the hang of it, it will increase. Your exercise of memory also will increase, and that will help. So eventually you will increase. You will come to that point. And once you have, suppose, 80 shlokas in your memory, and then don't stop it at there. Okay, there are so many more to learn. Okay, maybe about body and soul. Okay, I know maybe 80 shlokas is pretty much a number where you can kind of comfortably explain the whole body and soul situation. But then there are so many other topics, so many other things. So, there can be, there's unlimited scope for learning, basically. Unlimited. Our Vedic literatures are unfathomable depth. So, 2 things. Active recall, that means test yourself every time. Always test. And don't take test as we always fear tests, because that's how we have been growing. Because test is, have I understood perfectly? Will I get 100 upon 100? That is the mood when we are approaching a test. So it is like, shivering going on. No, just take it as part of learning. It's okay not to get it 100%. So, but test it so that you make it a part of learning. Test is not an event that it happens. I have like the other day Vishnu Teja was saying on the comments, I have a final exam coming up. So usually these examinations are event, like the defining moments of our future, like what is going to happen. So don't make it like that. Just treat the test as a learning method or a learning instrument. Treat the test as a learning instrument and use the test. It is not about getting 100%. No, it will not happen. So it's okay. But the thing is, basically, to bring it out from your memory. Not to every time look at it. Look at it means you are just putting it as a memory, but your memory is not working to bring it out. That's when it's not growing, it's not expanding, you can't remember verses, it's all done wrong. So when we do it, bringing out from our memory, that's why we have to preach. We have to open up and preach to others. We have to start talking to people. Even though it may relatives, sometimes they may not like it over, just start speaking. And if nobody wants to listen to you, just speak to the 4 walls. People may say, oh, this will become crazy, this fellow. But it's all right, it's all right. You're just practicing, So we have to try to bring it out. That's when our mind will work. So when you come to this point of, say, you have learned, say, 80 shlokas, and it may not be practical that you can chant all of them in a single day and practice. Actually, you can. 80 shlokas, you still can. But, yeah, in the beginning, no, you can't. So, maybe 30 shlokas is your limit. Actually, if you count the travel or here and there, whatever pockets of time, you actually can. 80 is still very much doable every day. Maybe even 100 or even more are doable. Because as you go faster, right, you will also be able to chant the verses faster, it will be in your memory, and you can chant more. You can actually do it. Even there are people who do 200, 300, 400, 500 verses a day. So it's doable, but it takes practice. So when it comes to a point where you practically cannot manage chanting all those slokas, because you have your chanting to do, you have your reading to do, you have your other things to do in life. So that's when the spaced repetition will help. So in the beginning you can chant all the slokas every day. But when you come to a point where, okay, I cannot manage every day, okay, then split them up. Split them up and say 30 in this day, today 30 and tomorrow 30. Suppose I have only memorized maybe say 45 verses. So today I can do 30, tomorrow I can do the rest of the 15, and the rest of the next day I will come back to this 30, and then the other day 15. And in the meantime, I may be learning 1 or 2 new verses so that 15 will become 17. So in that way, I can space it out so that one day this and one day that and one day this and one day that. In that way, every week or so, I am revisiting those verses that I have learned previously. So in that way, you're not losing track. And if you don't remember what verse you learned maybe a week ago, that's where it's helpful to keep a written track record. So what I have done here is I have prepared a sheet, a Google sheet. So this is what I intend to do. I haven't done it yet, but this is what I intend to do. So I want to show it on my iPad. I'll just see if I can take it out. Okay, this is a fancy name that I gave, Sloka memorization tracker. So I just gave it a name. So as you can see, a sample Sloka memorization tracker. So if you see at the bottom, there are three tabs, 3 sheets. One is called the dashboard, one is called the sheet, what is that? Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 and Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. Now, if I see on the dashboard, this is what I would see. Okay, Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. And then there is a dates. So what is all this? Okay, let's go to actually Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, then we will know what we're talking about. So now I'm in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 sheet. Okay, so in the chapter 1, before you even start memorizing, just scope the subject. Like go through the whole chapter and select those verses which you would want to remember. Because some are more important, like they can be used for preaching. So you can select those verses and put them down on a list in a sheet like this. And maybe I've just, for sample, I have done 4 verses from the chapter 1. So 115, 116, 136, 140. So 115 and 116 are the names of the different conch shells of Krishna and the Pandavas. Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Poundram Dadhmau Mahashankham Bhima Karma Vrikodaraha Ananta Vijayam Raja Kuntiputro Yudhishthiraha Nakulaha Saha Devascha Sughosha Manipushpakao. So these are all the names of the conch shells. Each conch shell has a name. So Yudhishthir Maharaj conch shell, Krishna's conch shell Panchajanya, and Arjuna, Bhima is Poundram. So that is his conch shell. And then Nakula and Sahadev has Sughosha and Manipushpaka. So in this way they have their own conch shell names. So this verse is good to just, okay, it is not a verse you would want to use in a preaching scene, but it is good to learn all these details also, apart from our preaching philosophy. So if you just want to remember these things, so 115, 116 and 136 is about Papameva Shredasman. So basically there is a detail in the purport of that verse, which the 6 kinds of aggressors. So that is something which I would want to remember. So what are the 6 kinds of aggressors? When they attack, or when they are, those aggressors, there is no sin in killing them. That is according to Manusmriti. Of course, modern law may not be saying the same thing, but this is what it's okay to punish. Like even in modern law, there is, in self-defense, if you hurt an attacker, that's not a crime, because he has come to attack you, and then in your self-defense, maybe something just hit him and then maybe he went unconscious, or maybe he's brain damage or whatever, organ damage or whatever. So that's not criminal because he was the one who attacked. So similarly in Manusmriti, there is these 6 aggressors that even if one kills, he's not sinful. So those 6 aggressors are listed in the purport of the 136. So that is something I would want to remember. And then 140 is about women. If they are let loose, if they are not under the protection of men, then they will be going loose, and then there will be unwanted children, and then the population will become sinful. So in this way, these are the 4 verses probably, if I want to remember from the first chapter. Now the dates, as you can see, the next columns all are date. So suppose today is when I want to start this Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, and I have memorized these 4 verses today. So I'll just put a date here. So if I want to write, 1 second, today is what? 5/17. 5/17. That is May of 17th. course, I did not. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying. I did not format it. I would actually format it as May 17. So I would actually select that option in the formatting. But I'm just showing it to you. So I just put 517 in all these things. So then what happens? I do this for all this. Okay. That was today. Okay. Now tomorrow I would try to remember them out of memory. Okay, bring them out. Chant those verses. Panchajanyam Rishikesham or Rishikesho. So I am not clear. Okay, okay. Now I am clear, but I am just acting. It's a drama now. Drama time. So Panchajanyam Rishikesham, Rishikesho, Rishikeshena, Rishikeshaha. What is it? Okay, I'm not clear. So, okay, next Panchajanyam Rishikesh, whatever it is. Then Devadattam, Arjuna. And Arjuna, what name was that? Because there are many names. Dhananjaya. Okay, Dhananjaya. So, in this way, I'm trying to regurgitate. Trying to bring out. So, if I did well, suppose I remembered, okay, Panchajanyam Rishikesho, Devadattam Dhananjaya, Poundram Dadhmo Mahashankham Bhima Karma Vrikodaraha. Very good. Okay, then what I do, the sixth, sorry, not sixth, sorry, what am I doing? 5:18. So this is tomorrow. Yeah. Now I would select that and see if I can, yeah, put that as green. I remember that very well. That's green. The next verse, maybe not as good, Ananta what? Ananta Govinda, Ananta Vaikuntha, Ananta Vijayam. Ananta Vijayam Raja. Yudhishthira. What Yudhishthira? What? I don't remember. Okay, I did not do well. So I put a date there. 5:18. Okay, done. Now I put it as, I remember maybe half of it, but half of it I do not remember. So, or maybe I remember only like 1/4 of it, the 3/4 I do not remember. Orange or yellow. If I do not remember at all, it's like completely out of my memory. Red. So now, for the 4 verses, you will have colors. Now, going back to this dashboard. So you are not completely satisfied here. Of course, even though it is red, when it is red, you will memorize it. Again, bring it back to 100%. But you will leave it at red because that was your initial memory state on the day. Of course, at the end of after you have seen that you have read and then you are at red, then you will look up the verse and then okay, try to memorize again. Okay, maybe you will get it back at 100, but leave it at red because that was your initial state. Okay, this is where I was. So it was not very good. So I had to do a lot of work to again memorize the whole thing. That means I'm not that confident. So okay, go back to this dashboard. Bhagavad Gita chapter 1. Change this date to today is what? I mean the date is 5:18. Not today, so it's tomorrow. Okay. 5:18. You see here I formatted the date properly. Okay. So you see, I would rate it as orange, not so good. So in this way, I would rate it an orange. And then next day, maybe after I would practice, okay, I'm not so good, right? So maybe 2 days later, I will try to, of course, when I say not so good, that's the initial state, but I have memorized them. So I again know it 100%, all of them. But it took me more effort to come to that stage. It's not like I saw the verse numbers and I just, tuck, I just did it. No. So I know now all the 4 verses. But then test myself 2 days later. Suppose it's now 5:20, May 20th, right? So May 20th. And then I go through them. 3 of them I remember very well. So on the Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, this one, 3 of them will be green and 1 of them will be like yellow. Not so bad, but maybe like 75% I remember, but one or two words I do not remember. Then I had to do, so it's almost there but not completely there. So I would give it a yellow. So I will come back here and I'll say a yellow. I'll give it myself a yellow. So I'll give it yellow. So the whole point is you will repeat this as many days and get it to green. So here on the left there is Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, chapter 2. Then you can put other things like say Mukunda Mala Stotra. Right? That's Mukunda Mala Stotra. So as you can see, so this is Mukunda Mala Stotra. So how well did I remember? So again the same way, and then go into and until it gets green, everything until it gets green. So in this way we can keep a track. And suppose there are some series of verses that are not like chapter 1 or chapter 2. Just I found in that lecture that Prabhu quoted, that was nice, and here Prabhu quoted when I was talking to him, and then he quoted this verse, and then I saw in one Prabhupada's purport, this verse. So how to capture all these verses? So you make another sheet with like random verses, or one sheet from is like lecture verses. Maybe Sundar Gopal Prabhu's lectures, verses from his lectures, and of course it will be like thousands of them over time. But maybe Sundar Gopal Prabhu lectures sheet 1, maybe say 50, limited to 50, because suppose you have come to green in that sheet, all 50 you remember, and then you add more and those are not at green, then again you have to go back red. Of course it will, after even green you will still go back to red if you don't practice them enough. After green, all are green. If you don't practice it, again you may go down to yellow or orange or red again. So that is okay. That again we have to spaced repetition, and then we have to get back to green again. But if we're adding more verses all the time, then it's not a very good evaluation, because the first day when I said yellow, it would mean all the 100 verses are yellow. No, but I only meant the first 50 was yellow. But and then when I said green, it was not that all the 100 were green. Only the first 50 were green, and then after that I added the rest of them. So it's not an accurate representation of what we know and the whole tracking system. So when you track, keep a limit of this. This is what I want to learn. And suppose in this chapter 1, you have first seen the whole chapter, and then you decided, okay, these 4 verses is what I want to remember. But the first day, you just managed to remember 1 verse. It's okay. So what you do, the 3 other slokas, you don't put any date there. It's okay. And then when you actually learn the other verses, and then you learn the second verse, and then on the first column you put, okay, this is the date, this is the date, this is the date. So in this way you can always, it's not that all the 50 verses or whatever it has to be done in that one day. No. You can take it at your own pace as it allows you, as much as your memory allows you. You learn that much and then go to the next. So, but in a page, keep it at a fixed number. And slowly then, fill out all the, as until you get to the green. That means at that stage, and if it can be consistently green for over 3 or 4 days, 5 days, or maybe a week, then yes, you have got a pretty good hold of the whole verse, and you will not probably forget it so easily. And that's when we would rest that verse. If you have way too many verses to memorize, this is how you can, and then revisit those verses maybe after in 2 weeks time or something like that. You just go through your thing, and then maybe put a reminder for yourself. Okay, 2 weeks time, just revisit the Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, okay, chapter 2 or whatever it is. So in chapter 2, I just did a sample, whatever it is. So here this is chapter 2 sheet. So I have just listed down some verses, and then these may be the important verses, and then again the same color coding, and in this way you can track and you can note down everything, So of course, when Prabhu is saying something or somebody is quoting one shloka, you don't have your Google Sheets open and then you want to find and then open while he's talking and he's talking something else. So if you want to be practical, then just write in some paper or maintain a small book, and you can note down in that book, and then when you come back home and then fill out in the Google Sheets or something like that, and work out that system yourself. And then, so basically this is a system which I am intending to use to keep track of my shloka learning. Because sometimes I forget what shlokas I even learnt over time, because it's just like that, we are imperfect, our memory is imperfect. So these are some of the practical tips that, well, not exactly how I learned the shlokas, but if I would have used this technique, it would have been much more effective, and maybe I would have learned many more shlokas. But I did not use this. It was kind of in a crude way, I just learnt over the years under Sundar Gopal Prabhu's guidance and Prabhupada, who was quoting everything every time. So as we read more and more, and as I was hearing, especially I learned from Sundar Gopal Prabhu how to learn all these shlokas and everything. It was his training. So I owe entirely to him this whole knowledge of learning shlokas. So that it was done in a crude way. I took down notes in the class, and taking down notes, that's something I want to talk about actually. So taking down notes, what we usually do when we take down notes is that we just write down what we hear. Usually we just write down what we hear. But that's a very passive way of taking notes, and it has proved with scientific studies that. Can you tell us which apps to use, Sunita Sharma Mataji? We will come back to that, okay? We will come back to that. So, taking down notes. So, we would just write down what we are hearing, and we hope that these will stick in our mind, and then we will never revisit those notes, and they'll just lie down there, collecting dust. And that's how our note taking has been, at least mine, kind of. In the beginning, no, I was actually every day, memorizing all the slokas. But now, over so many months, I think over the few years, I have taken down so many notes, but I've never once visited them again. So anyway, this is one other thing that I want to improve in myself as well. So, what I have learned in this recent research that I did about memorizing stuff, that when we take notes, we should not just take the notes that are being told. What you should write instead is the question that would bring out the point that was just told. So it requires a little bit of reverse engineering in your head, that when you are seeing it, when you hear something that is valuable, you create a question for it, for which that thing that was said will become the answer. So when you are revisiting the notes, you will see the question. Then you have to answer it with what was actually told there in the class. So in that way, again, the active recall, the bringing out from the head rather than putting into the head. When we just take down the notes, what was being told, it is just like putting into the head, but the head is not working. You're just putting, and nothing is working there. So it will work when we bring it out from the depths of our memory. So the whole point is to remember, right? So make the question. It will keep you more engaged in the class, because you have to think, you have to reverse engineer. Instead of just straight away transcribing what the lecturer is telling, you hear that, and then you create the question, then you create the answer. This is actually called the cornell note-taking system. If you want to do research on this, I hope you all have a notebook beside you and taking notes. I don't know if you are doing that, but when I'm telling all these things, it's good to note down and then revisit those things later. So active recall, spaced repetition, and cornell note-taking system, the Feynman technique. Feynman technique is basically Feynman, F-E-Y-N-M-A-N. It was coined by Richard Feynman. So that's a physicist. So basically Feynman technique is to see whether you have understood something or not. you should be able to explain it to a 5-year-old and make him understand. Not that you explain it, yes, but he doesn't understand anything. No, he should be able to understand. Of course, when we say 5-year-old, it doesn't exactly mean 5-year-old. That means a person who has no knowledge of the subject. Suppose now a big scientist, can he explain what a big theory of relativity or quantum physics or what to a kid, an inquisitive kid, maybe a 10-year-old kid who does not know anything about anything, or a layman? He may be an adult, but he is not a scientific field. He is just like maybe, I don't know, whatever he's doing. He's not a scientific minded person. But so can it be understood by him? Can it be made understood to him? So can I explain it in such simple language that even that person can understand? That means I have understood it well. Otherwise, I did not understand it well enough, because it should be very simple in my head. If something is understood, that means it is simple in my head. If I do not understand, that's when there are gaps. I do not know how to get from A to B. I don't know how that happened. So what is this concept? Like in the 213 verse, Kaumaram Yauvanam Jara Tatha Dehantara Praptir. So if we are getting another new body, are we getting a new body in this life? So that's not clear for me. So how to get that clear? So if I get this clear, then we can explain. Yes, so this is the movie reel and all these analogies that Prabhupada used. So that, if you observe Srila Prabhupada, this is exactly what he has done. He has explained the entire philosophy of Krishna consciousness so that an absolute layman can understand the whole science. If he actually puts effort in reading, anybody would understand. Such simple analogies, not just analogies, the way Prabhupada explained is a simple person can understand. His disciples, all of them, they were not scientists and big, but they understood. How did they understand? Because that's how Srila Prabhupada explained. Of course, it requires, Krishna Shakti Vinad Nahetar Pravartan. That's why when Prabhupada went to America, he wrote a beautiful, very, very touching poem. When he landed, not landed, he did not go in a flight, he went in a ship. So when he actually reached Boston Harbor, he wrote this poem where he said, he was praying to Krishna. The population in this country is completely in the mode of passion and ignorance. And there's almost zero trace of goodness here. And I do not know how these people are ever going to understand this lofty truths that are there in our scriptures. I'm just paraphrasing it. It's not exactly the same words that Prabhupada used, but to the same effect. So then he said, please make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. So he's praying to Krishna to give him the strength. So again, as we learn all these techniques, we may get into this thing that, okay, it's within our control. But no, it's always under the mercy of Prabhupada and Krishna that we can actually put these systems effectively in place, and so that we can remember and then use them in preaching and use them to train ourselves, all these things. So it's not about our own strength. It's never about our own strength in spiritual life. It's all about by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. And even though we may know all these techniques, if we do offenses, then you will see that you will not have the mood to learn. You will, or your mind is so disturbed, you just can't focus on any verse. You just So these things means, you see, although you know the technique, you cannot put into practice because the mercy of the Guru, the mercy of Krishna is not flowing. So to keep it flowing, we need to be very cautious with our sadhana, with our avoiding of offenses. Of course, we all are doing constant offenses, or at least I am. So that's why this Nama Parad stage, we are all doing offenses at the moment. When I'm chanting, I'm not attentive. I'm maybe offending devotees. I'm offending the holy place. Maybe I don't have enough faith in the scriptures. That means I'm offending the scriptures, which is the fourth offense. So in this way, I may be committing subtly without even my knowledge. Even though I want to advance in Krishna consciousness, but I'm subtly I'm still having those offenses in mind that are latent in me. So I don't even observe that. So because of the offenses, we are still in the offensive stage. But as long as our mood is sincere and we are trying our best to, and even that's why every time we pay obeisances to devotees, vancha kalpata, even if unintentionally or intentionally I have offended, please forgive me. So we're always in that mood of submissive surrender, or we should be in that mood. And in that mood alone, and constantly fervently praying to Srila Prabhupada, and also engaging in service, not just spacing out and praying to Prabhupada, please help me. No, engage in service. Whatever service is there, engage as much as possible in service, practical service, and all kinds of service, not just Learning slokas is one thing, but there are so many varieties of services, and we have to engage in all of them as engaged by the devotees. So we have to engage in all of them, and then also take time out a little bit every day to learn all these slokas and everything, and always remember that it's all on the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without their mercy, nothing can actually work. Nothing can work. So, keeping that in mind, what I was saying is, you use this system, and when we take notes, so use that system of writing questions, and then this is the cornell note taking system. I did not take out a. Let me see if we can pull out a diagram. And yeah, this is about flashcards. Flashcards is another very useful technique. Okay, I'll talk about that after this. Flashcards. Cornell note taking system. Cornell note taking system. So remember these things, these words. If you want to do more research on these topics, and if you want to understand them more, there are videos, there are articles on these things. So Feynman technique, Feynman, so that you understanding means you should be able to explain it to a 5-year-old. And the other one is active recall, which is test yourself to bring out retention of the topic or the sloka. Then spaced repetition, in intervals we try to interrupt the forgetting curve and then make it flat, almost you will never forget. So as many times as we would repeat consciously, that many times that difficult it will become for us to forget it. In fact, even in advertising, if you do know or not, I do not know. So in advertising it is said that to get the attention of the person, when you are advertising, it takes at least 7 times for the person to see before he can have the first impression about it. Like the same ad he would see in a YouTube video, or then on a billboard on the street, or maybe in a taxi, or say on a bus, or all these places, or in some website, maybe he's just scrolling through and then there's a banner there. So whatever it is, it takes 7 times to actually, for a person to actually take note of that. Hey, what is this? It doesn't strike on the first time. It just, in subconsciousness, we saw it, but it just went out of our memory. And only about 7-8 times later, then we start to notice it. Hey, hey, what is this? What is that? What is that? So the moment we asked what is that, that was already must have been the 7th or 8th time. So that's how our forgetting curve is. So we need to interrupt that. So that's all about advertising. That's the psychology of advertising and all that stuff. The same thing we have to apply here. So the forgetting curve. So we have to interrupt the forgetting curve by regular retention exercises that we have. And when we say retention exercises, it's not just about opening the verse and looking at it. No, bring it out, and if to the point that you cannot anymore, and then see. When you are like longing for that answer, what was that word? What was that word? When you are dying for that answer, and when you see it, that's when you will remember it more. If it's just like every time spoon fed to you everything, okay, that is okay. Next time I'll try to remember. No, that will not work because your mind did not work for it. So that's very important. So that is active recall and spaced repetition, Feynman technique. Now is the cornell note taking system, which looks something like this. Okay, so I hope you can see that. This is how a cornell note taking system would look like. So on the right, as you can see, name, date, topic, class. So when we are in a lecture, Prabhupada's lecture, even if you are hearing, of course sometimes you're just working your thing and maybe Prabhupada lecture is playing in your ear. I'm not saying every time you should do this, but for serious study, if you want to like take note and remember things, then you can do this. You can always, of course, remember and hear, and then you're not doing this actively. But if you're in a lecture, especially when you're sitting in the temple room in a lecture, or even if you want to listen to Prabhupada's lecture in this way, you're just listening and then taking down notes. This is the best way to take notes. So name, date, topic, class. So Bhagavatam verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 4, now it's 4:26:15. Today morning there was a Bhagavatam class by Sundar Gopal Prabhu. Every Sunday, if you do not know about it, every Sunday morning 8 a.m. he's going live during this lockdown every Sunday. Usually every Sunday also he goes live anyway. Usually he does on Saturday as well, but now in this time on Sundays 8 a.m. So at that time he goes live. So if you next time just look out for that one. So anyway, so today's topic was 4:26:15. Canto 4, chapter 26, text 15. So you can just write the heading as Srimad SB, Srimad Bhagavatam 4.26.15, and then the speaker name Sundar Gopal Prabhu. It's like that. And then in the notes, in the notes, divided into the cues or the questions on one side and the notes on the other side. So you would probably want to take down note of what the speaker said on the right side, but then write on the left side a question or a cue. When you see that, you will remember. So the whole thing is, suppose tomorrow or that same night, suppose the morning was a lecture and then night I want to revise what Prabhu said. So what I would do, I would take out this page in my book. I cover the note side, that whole the right side section. The right side section notes. I cover that whole thing with my hand. I can't do it here. I'll just go behind the screen. So I would cover the whole notes side section, and then I'll just look at the cues or the questions that I've set for myself on the left side and see if I can see the question, can I answer all the notes that I took for that cue? So in that way I can remember. So I look at the questions or the cues only. So in that way I'm doing this active recall, that I'm bringing it out from my memory. So that's essentially the Cornell note-taking system, CORNELL note-taking system. You can research on that if you want more detail. So that is one way. That is one way of looking at it. Actually, that's a very effective way of note-taking. Then there are also mind maps which you can use if you want to understand. This will come at a later stage when you kind of scoping the subject. Suppose if you want to know about, say, the three modes of material nature, and you write three modes of material nature in the center, and then what they mean, what is the definition, what is the effects of the three modes, like what kind of species are in which modes, or even among human beings, what are the behavioral patterns of mode of goodness and mode of passion, mode of ignorance, what are the food, so all the things that are related, make like a spider diagram and all these things. So these are all memory techniques, So just get a big paper, or A4, A5, not A5, A4, A3 or something like that, or something, a big one, so that you can draw it out. Or if you can use your apps on iPad or something like that, if you have, like there are apps like Procreate, and there is like note-taking apps. I'm using one called Notability. That Notability app is a good one. You saw me in the other lectures where I drew something and all that hi-fi stuff. So that is all in that Notability app. So of course, if you don't have all these gadgets, fine. You can just take a simple book. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can just be a book, a simple paper book, and you can still do all these things. So when you do this, then you kind of force yourself to. It doesn't have to be slokas. It can be a concept. What is the three modes of material nature? What do I know about three modes of material nature? And then I draw out as much as I know, and then I will look up. Okay, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, chapter 14. There are more information about three modes, and then in the 11th canto, there are even more information about three modes. Just look up all that, and then fill up the whole spider diagram, and then done. And then now I look at that whole thing, and that from the root, from that middle word, and then I branch out, and then that even branches out even more and more and more. That is one way. And I've never done that. I've never done these spider diagrams, mind maps, but going forward, maybe I will. But for some people, some will work. For some people, another method will work. But this active recall and spaced repetition is something which will work for everybody, and it is the best way, scientifically proven, to memorize. Basically, in fact, there were tests where a group of students were like made to memorize certain things. Not memorize. So they were meant to read. So one group of students read it once. One group of students read it 4 times. one group of students were, what they did, maybe they underlined and highlighted, and the last one, they read it once and they were immediately tested on it, like questions from, and then a week later or next day or something, all these groups were tested, and then by far the group that was tested, and they read it only once and then they were tested immediately about what they read. So that group performed by far so much better than even that group which read it 4 times. So 4 times is how much time to read it 4 times, So most of you will not have the time, we are busy with so many things. So when we are reading Prabhupada's books and reading, so of course one way of reading is just reading. That's also a passive way of reading, is just read. That is also not bad. Nothing is bad. Prabhupada's books you touch. Prabhupada say you touch my books already, he is purified. Person touches Prabhupada's books already purified. So purification is always there. But if you want to dive more in depth, so that's what I'm saying. So when you have that energy to do it, then when you're reading in that manner, so kind of get this out, active recall, spaced repetition. So those who did the active recall, they did far better than even those persons who 4 times, and better than those persons who did once and those who highlighted. Highlighting also is not a very productive way of learning, because it's again passive. Yeah, you're highlighting, it looks productive, okay, you have done, or you're summarizing sometimes. Summarizing helps for some time, but it should be a platform for active recall. Like mind maps are a kind of summarization. But then, just because I did that, no. When I see that again, without seeing the mind map, can I recreate it again? If I can recreate it again and again and again, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, yes, then I can say that, okay, I understood I can understand now where everything fits, in which part of this whole mind map, and where everything fits. So by themselves, these mind maps and the cornell note taking system, they are not effective, but they have to be used. If you take cornell note taking system and then you never look at the notes, no point. So and then the verses you want to learn also can be cues and then notes, and then so when you put the hand on the notes and then look at the cues, okay, verse number like maybe some 247 karmanyevadhikaraste maphaleshu kadachana. Okay, so when I see 247, I should remember that. So if I don't remember, I have failed. Okay, so maybe if you want to categorize it differently, the verses that in the spreadsheet, in the Google spreadsheet or something like that, and then color code it and all that. If you have time for all that, you can do that. You don't have to do it on the Google Sheets. You can still do it on paper. You can make it in a book, and then you can just draw lines and then put the verse numbers, and then the pen you write down the date, and then you can just highlight it with a highlighter. You can use it. You can do it as high tech or as low tech as you can. So these are universally applicable techniques. So anything works. So you try to use all these things. Next, I would bring your attention to flashcards, which I had never used, but I kind of tested myself with flashcards. It's very interesting. It's like a game. So basically, flashcards are. There's an app called Anki, Anki. Anki. Actually, now there are so many apps with Anki, but you go to the original one, which is the open source, which is free on Mac OS, Windows, Android, but it is, I think, $30 something lifetime, one time payment, 30 something Singapore dollars, $31 maybe on the iOS. So if you find that expensive, if you have an Android, it's free. If it's on the Mac or Windows, it's free. So basically, I've never used it, so I can't show you a good example of. There is another called Quizlet, but that is a subscription model. So every year you have to pay something like $20 or something, 20 US. But free. Anki is free. ANKIweb.net. I think that's what I've taken out in the. Yeah, this one. The logo looks like that. Anki with a star there. Of course, and the color also blue, because there are also other Anki apps which are like trying to make money, but then they use the word Anki. Anki means in Japanese it's memorization. That's why the word Anki is used. It's a Japanese word, memorization. So Anki flashcards. So I have not used it, so I don't have a good example to show you now. But it's basically this. If you can do it on paper also, but it's very cumbersome, and on paper you will have too many flashcards and then you have too much paper. So it's best to do in an app, because nowadays everybody has a smartphone. They can make use of it. So basically you construct your own questions and answers. So I'll just draw it out so that you get the concept. So a card has always two sides, so the front and the back. The front is where the question is and the back is where the answer is. So basically in the low tech, what it used to be before, this was actually coined by I think a German writer who used to remember everything with this kind of card system. He has, no, that was not flashcards, that was something else. Note taking system. It was called a note box or something. I just can't remember it. But he had this very elaborate system of note taking and how to remember them. Not exactly remember them, but if he wants to retrieve something, he knows how to retrieve it. With paper system, he has done it. But nowadays, note taking system like Evernote, OneNote, or I use Notion, 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 and these apps have very good note taking abilities and how to connect one node and another and all that stuff. So anyway, so this is how a flashcard is in its most simplest form. So there is one this is the front of the card. I'm a very bad artist, as you can see, but just bear with me. So that is the front and that is the back. Okay, so here is the question. So the question can be either a proper question or it can just be Bhagavad Gita 2:13, and at the back it can be the whole verse, Dehinosmin, all that. The whole verse can be here and along with the translation, and maybe even the word to word. I don't know how much ever. Don't put too many things at the back at the answer. So basically it should be the answer to the question, just a single thing and a single answer. So the front and the back. So you shuffle the cards. I mean, in a low tech way, that's what you would do to randomize it. Shuffle the cards and then see the card and then the question. Okay, what is this verse? So in this way, there is a randomization of, just pick up from here and here, and this is like a game thing. You can do it, and then when you flip the other side, of course you don't have to write the whole verse, because you can take it out in other ways, like your app. You don't have to waste time writing each and every time so many things. If you can retrieve it some other way, like in Pocket Vedas or something, the main thing is to make the process effective, enjoyable, and so that's the main thing. So that's a physical card. That's how it look like. So the question in the front. Okay, what are the names of the five? I mean the the Pandavas' conch shells and Krishna's conch shells. So then I have to actually, that can be the question, and on the back can be all the names of the conch shells, or it can be the verse, the two verses, and then the names. So together, I would like to connect every answer with a verse. So not just satisfied. I mean, personally, I'm not satisfied with just the answer. Okay, Yudhishthir Maharaj was Ananta Vijaya. This. I would not be satisfied with that kind of answer. Yes, that is correct answer, but then the verse which has that answer, that verse I need to remember. So that's how I would put the answer on the back of the card. So it is good to put like in that way, because then the answer is one thing, then we should always have the source for the answer. So that's why we are learning all these slokas, because we need to know the chapter and verse and the sloka, and then the facts in that sloka, whatever is being said, all that has to be there, and we should not lose any part of this whole string. The source, the number, the text of it, the explanation and the understanding, and the memorization of it. Everything has to be there, So we should not lose sight. It is even if you don't remember the number exactly, I personally find it very useful to remember the number exactly, because if I want to really take it out quickly, the best way is to take out with a number, and if you want to show it to somebody, it's easier with a number, rather than you say take out that verse suppose we are on a phone call and then say, what is that, how can I understand about maybe karma, or how can I, my mind is feeling disturbed, then I want to point out some verse, and that person has a Bhagavad Gita in his hand, and I want to show him, okay, go to the index and search for this word, this bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanajita. What? That person is going like, he's already feeling dizzy. So instead I would say, go to chapter 6, text 6. Easy for him. So although I may be comfortable with Sanskrit, or but the other person may not be. So for him to quickly point it out, and he can easily retrieve it, and okay, that's good. Okay, I'm reading it now. So then you can consult him on a phone call. I'm just giving a scenario. So in this way, you can. If we should always have track of where we're getting the answers from, because 1715. What is 1715? In the purport, what is written? You see, the process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from the scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. So if I am saying the five conchals of the Pandavas and the Krishna's conchal are this. Where did you get this? Did you make it up? No. It is there in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 and 1.15, 1.16. So, good. So then settled. That's it. No doubts. Shastra says that's it. So that's why it is good to remember everything. The answer, the source of the answer, the number, and then everything. So these are some of the techniques. Feynman technique, recap. Feynman technique, understanding in a way that we can easily explain to a 5-year-old. Then you can actually see that in Prabhupada's example. He made it so easy. He explained such difficult concepts with such ease, and anybody could understand. That's why Prabhupada's books are so accessible. So that's one of the. In fact, there is a verse like this. Let me take out. Okay, wait. Metam. Yeah. This is a sutra. Mitam cha saram cha vacho hi vagmita iti. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. So Prabhupada is so eloquent, completely unlike me. Every class is like 2-3 hours long. So but he puts everything, is like his classes are 25 minutes, 20 minutes sometimes, half an hour, maximum 45 minutes, 1 hour, little more than an hour. So much packed into that, and he doesn't speak very fast, like so that's eloquence, and anybody who hears, and he can easily understand. When you read his books, you can easily understand. So that is Prabhupada. So you can see that Feynman technique in action in Prabhupada. So that is Prabhupada technique actually. So anyway, then there is the active recall, spaced repetition. Two systems which cannot be raised. It's not. You cannot say that, oh, this is not for me. No. This is something which is for everybody, and also all these things that I've said, it works for everyone. But these mind maps and cornell note-taking system, they are based on the active recall system, because in the cornell note-taking system you are forced to active recall by looking at the cues and then covering the answers and then trying to get it out of your memory. And if you can't, then look it up. Oh, okay. So again reconstruct that. So that is cornell note-taking system. So that is based on active recall, and even the mind maps. Write out and then do that whole mind map, and then see where the gaps in your knowledge are, and then try to refer. Okay, where I can find 3 modes of material nature, the topic. So if you go to this Śloka book or even Bhagavad Gita, at the end there is a topic index. After the verse index there is a topic index. You can use that to go 3 modes of material nature and see what I've mentioned about 3 modes of material nature. And you can search a website called vaniquotes.org, vanipedia.org, vaniquotes.org. So you can go there, vaniquotes.org, So you can go, I think .org or .com or something like that. So anyway, get that, and then there are also compilations of quotes in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's lectures, conversations everywhere. So then you can do all the research if you want, and then fill in all the details that you missed out, and then make the whole mind map complete. Once you're satisfied, try to look at everything, okay, understand, okay, then maybe a day later try to recreate the whole mind map again from scratch without looking at it. So just treat every day as a test. So don't wait for, okay, test, this is like a event, it's a dreadful event on which it's a judgment day whether I'm going to hell or heaven. No, it's not that. It's just a part of learning, and it's okay to be not completely memorizing everything, and then come back to the point of 100%, interrupt the forgetting curve. So that's the spaced repetition, and use techniques like cornell note taking system, the flashcard system, mind map systems. All this all will help. So I think that's about what I want to say about practical techniques for memorization on today's episode, and I hope that was helpful. And if there are any questions, that was like a super long rant, but I hope that was helpful. And let's see if we have any questions. So we will try to take those questions. I think there are a few questions. Okay, Sunita Sharma Mataji is asking, can you please tell us which apps to use? First of all, you may say this is all first world country kind of, or you have all this fancy Apple Pencil and the iPad to show the screen, and then you have all these gadgets, and that's why you can do all these things. No, so it can be very low tech. It can be, as I said, a pen and paper or a pencil and paper. It can be anything. If you have color pencils, you can use that to highlight, or if you have a highlighter, you can highlight with that. So these systems can be done on paper. But if you want to use apps, and actually nowadays even in any country there are smartphones and you can have access to all these apps, and Google Sheets is something which is ubiquitous. Ubiquitous means it is found everywhere. It's on your laptop, it's on your device, or even if you're somewhere else where you don't have your devices, you can log into with your Google account, and then you can go to your Google Drive, and then you can access the Google Sheets, and then you just folder management, like your own folders, your own files inside. So in that you can open a spreadsheet, and then you can access it anywhere you want. It's ubiquitous. So that can be used for that. Spaced repetition, and keeping track of what. It's like a tracker, basically your whole sloka learning tracker system. So which series of slokas, which day I have done, and how well I have done, red, green, blue. Or if you want to put as stars, like maybe 5 star, 3 star, 1 star, 2 star, whatever rating works for you, put that. And then as you use that is for that. And then there is a Feynman technique, which is basically trying to understand. That doesn't require any app. And then Cornell note taking system, you can do it in apps like Evernote or OneNote or Notion. There are also other things like of course pen and paper is most low tech, and it's accessible to anyone. And the other one is other note taking. There are actually a few note taking apps you can use, even if it is just your Apple Notes. But Apple Notes, you can't, I don't know if you can divide into 2 tables like that, and then one is the question side and one is the note side, and then you can cover the note side. I don't know if you can do that. If you can do that, that's well and good. That's basically what you need, 2 sections. And in Notion, I like Notion because in Notion there is something called the toggle system. So basically, you see all this? This is a list, it just looks like a bullet points, right? So these are practical techniques to memorize slokas. This was what I was just filling up today morning, just for that, for this class. What are the points I need to cover? So you can see here, this just looks like a series of bullet points. But some of the, and you notice, I can't actually zoom into this. This app doesn't allow me to do that. But if you see closely, all those bullet points are in triangle shape. Okay, and some triangles are faded and some triangles are more bright. So the ones which are faded, they don't have anything else, but the ones more bright, if you click on that, I will click on the bright one, the first bright one. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth one from the top, which is the first bright one. So if I click on that, you see that becomes a downward facing triangle, and now there are sub points. So when I'm using Notion to take notes during the class, nowadays I am using Notion. So I put the question in the main line and the answer in the sub point. So and even in the sub points, you see one of the last one is again bright. So that means if I click on that one, that is again expanding into another subset. So in that way, the answer is hidden. When the triangle is like that, the answer is hidden. So I see only the question. So this is cornell note taking system in action, but you don't need to have those, that table, the divider. So this triangle thing actually works really well, and the question can be here, and then you can just tap on that one, and now you have the answer. So that's one way of doing it. But in Evernote, this is not there, but there is a feature of the division of this thing. In an ordinary notebook, you would have to divide, yes, again, and that's how you would do it. And in OneNote also, I think it's the same way. As far as I know, only the Notion has this toggle feature, toggle on and toggle off, and then it's collapsible. The whole thing is collapsible like that, you see, only one point. Evidence-based study techniques. This is like scientific evidence, whatever mundane research they have done, all the scientists. So I just made a little bit of research on that one. I already saw all this. I have been studying this for the last like 2 or 3 months ago. I was just looking up all these techniques just to increase my efficiency in learning slokas. So I just went through all these things, but I never really took notes. So today is when I went through all those again, and then I just took notes, and all these bullet points came out of that, and that's how I expanded it. So you can expand it to any length. So it looks neat, it's like bullet points, and then how much ever, and even you see it also allows you this Notion, but you have to pay for it. It's very little. For me it was free because they're very good. They support non-profits. So for our temple, I have got this whole plan, free plan. It's like a paid plan, but we got it for free for the temple. So unlimited. So for everybody else, it will be free plan. You can write some until each of these is called a block. Basically, that's how they name it. Like toggle is a block, page is a block, everything is a block. So blocks of content. If you're not familiar with what I'm saying, it's just the terminology that Notion uses. So a table is a block. Everything is a block. Every type of content is a block. So these blocks of content, I think there are a limit of 1,000 blocks that you can use for a free plan, and after that you won't be able to add any more notes. But if you pay as little as like I think $4 per month, I think maybe, if you can afford that, then you can have this basically unlimited plan that you can add how many ever blocks, how many ever whatever you want to do. So in this way you can use the Notion, and that's what I use. And otherwise there are other note taking apps like OneNote or Evernote, which you can use also. Anything that works for you, basically. I'm not a patronizer of any one particular thing. Alright, so those are the apps basically. Google Spreadsheets, then this any note taking app, or if you want to go absolutely low tech, it can all be in books. So either way, whichever works for you. But you need to have separate books though, like a lecture notes book has to be separate, maybe another book for Shlokas from Prabhupada's books, and then there's another book for tracking alone, like the series of verses like Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, chapter 2, Mukundamala Stotra, or Kunti Devi's prayers, Bhishma Devi's prayers, Prahlad Maharaj's prayers. So to keep track and the date and the highlighting of how well I knew them, yellow, green, red, or stars, or whatever you want to do. So that is for tracking, and then one other for the actual noting down of each slokas, or you may not be wanting to do that. You can just see the Pocket Vedas app. Yeah, that is another app you would definitely want to have on your phone, Pocket Vedas. It's both on iOS and Android, so you can actually download them. It's not free. It's about $31 in Singapore. That would mean, I don't know how much in India and how much ever. Maybe in India it's a bit lesser than Singapore price. I don't know exactly how much. Maybe it's 800 rupees or something like that. So you can buy it off the Play Store or App Store, and if it's iOS. And then that app is very useful because all the slokas, everything, all the books of Prabhupada are there. There is another app which is the Veda Base app. This one is Veda Base app. This has even more, like Prabhupada's lectures, conversations, everything of Prabhupada. Everything is there. But the navigating interface is not as friendly as the Pocket Vedas. The Pocket Vedas doesn't have everything, but it has enough for us because it has all the books. It doesn't have the lectures, the conversations in transcript form. You can always find them online as well. But in this Veda-based app, the navigation is not as optimal as you would want it to be. Sometimes it's a bit confusing. You can get a hang of it, but it's not as effective. Even if you want to pull out something, it's not as effective. Pocket Vedas, on the other hand, it's very simple to use. The search is not as good. If you want to search by numbers, it will just go here. So for example, I'll just show you. You see on the top of this screen here, this is Pocket Vedas app. On the top, on the left, there is a magnifying glass. So that is a search button. So if I click on that one, tap on that one. If I search a word, like I searched the word mitam, that's why I got it, because I know that verse had the word mitam. Mitam means concise, I think. Yeah, mitam means concise this way. So I saw this a few days ago, but I did not know the number properly. That was why I was getting it wrong. But then I knew the word has mitam. So when I searched for mitam, it came. So there are only maybe 4 verses with the word mitam. But if I want to search by number, suppose I say 213, dehi nosmin yatha dehe. That has become kind of our default verse for examples. So 213, search. You see what comes out. All kinds of numbers comes out. So the search is not very optimal here. But you can get, of course, 213 is here, right at the top. But suppose it is like, say, Canto 6, Chapter 5, Text 14, okay? Let's go. Canto 6, Chapter 5, Text 14. If I do that, everything is coming. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. So I just have to go all the way down. Then it comes in alphabetical order. So it's like B first, Bhagavad Gita, so BG, Bhagavad Gita. And then after that CC, BS. BS means Brahma Samhita. CC means Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then all the way down SB, so Bhagavatam. So S means all the way towards the end. Okay, N means Nectar of Devotion, Narada Bhakti Sutra, NBS. NOD is Nectar of Devotion, NOI is Nectar of Instruction, and then SB, then now we're coming to SB. Now you see 3, 4, 5, everything is there, and go down all the way to 6, 5, 14, yes. Now you click on this, you get it. So you can go using number, but it just shows everything. You can still navigate. It's not very difficult, but that's the interface. That's the only kind of downside. But if you can, there is another way to go. Beside the magnifying glass, there is a book logo there, icon. Press on that one. You can select the book on the left. This is only for iOS. Android, it looks different. This scrolling feature, like for example, that is the Bhagavad Gita, and then chapter 2, verse 13, go. Now we have directly. We can actually do this. So this is a very effective way. But on Android, if I show you, it's like this. Sorry. Wait a second. I need to cover my face. Yeah. Now you can see it clearly. So these are the books that are there. Oops. I have messed it up. Okay. So these are the books, and all the 13 books are there. So the whole Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, teaching of Lord Chaitanya, teaching of Lord Kapila, teaching of Queen Kunti, Narada Bhakti Sutra, Mukundamala Sutra, all are here. And if I want to go 6, 5, 14, as we said, Then I have to go to like Bhagavatam. I'm trying to not see the screen. Okay, now you see Bhagavatam canto, which, and then you can go to 6. Tap on the 6 there. Now you can't see it. Okay, 6 there. Tap on that, and then there's a 6. Now in 6 dot, you see there, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. Now go all the way to 6.5 and then 14. So 6.5, and then now you have like this 6.5.1, and then all together you go out, go up, and then you will see 14. There you have it. So now you can tap that verse. There you go, the verse. So that's how it works on Android. But this scrolling feature is really good in the Apple iPad or iOS. So if you go to, say, Srimad Bhagavatam, you can go to 6 and then 5 and then 14. So these are the apps. So Pocket Vedas, Vedabase I wouldn't recommend at this point. Pocket Vedas is easier. And then Google Spreadsheets, and then some note-taking app or just paper, whichever works for you. These are the apps. Next question. Such a long-winded answer for such a simple question. That's why it's not mitham, it's not true eloquence. Eloquence means, concise. Mitham. Nishita Agarwal says, what's the best way to get audio recordings for these verses? Say for the Mukundamala Stotra verses. I'm going to do. So there's one there's one video which we have done for the Nectar of Instruction, the 11 verses. I'm going to do another one for Mukundamala Stotra. So I will release that video on my YouTube channel. And once that is done, you can download the audio from there, or you can just listen to that YouTube video and you can learn the thing from there. So that's why I'm going to create this library of chanting all the series of shlokas so that devotees can actually learn from that, chant along, or if they just want to hear it, they can hear it. The idea is to make devotees make it easy for devotees to learn. So I'll be coming up with that. At the moment, I don't have I don't know of any recording that is there of Mukundamala Stotra. They may be there, I don't know, but I've never seen it. I've searched for it once, but I couldn't get any. So I will do it myself, and hopefully, I think today is what? Sunday. I think this week I will release, Krishna willing, I will release the Mukundamala Stotra video as well. Alright, so Vishnu Teja, will there be a session about avatars and the different categories? Well, there are 6 categories of avatars. Yeah, we can do this sometime. Not immediately though. After this is the rhythmic system of initiations. That's what I want to cover. So basically, for this Śloka learning course, this is pretty much the last session, but there is a bonus session. Not exactly a bonus, but it's something which is necessary. Bengali pronunciation, which is the topic tomorrow, because Bengali pronunciation and the way how you read is not the same as when you see the word in English, like here, Nana Rupatmano Buddhi Swairiniva Gunanvita Tannishtham Agatasyeha Kim Asat Karmabhir Bhavet. So as you see, you will pronounce. But when you see, like for example, I'll just give you a short example. Say, take a random verse. Adi 4:19. Okay, you see. If I would read it in the way I would read the Sanskrit verse, it would be Amake ta ye bhakta bhaje yei bhave tare se bhave bhaji e mora swabhave. So this is what I would read. But in Bengali, if you read this to a Bengali, I think there is Prem Vikas Prabhu and Oni Datta Prabhu and Tapasya Prabhu, they are all watching. I think they will be laughing with the way I am reading, because a Bengali wouldn't actually read it like this. They say Amake ta je bhakta bhaje jai bhave tare she bhave bhaji e mora swabhave. So it's a little different. So therefore, like you see ye y. Bengali would never say ye. You say j. So and a, whenever there is a without the ahaki matra, the elongated one, a with the line on top, like this one, like bhakta. In normally anyone would say bhakta, but in Bengali it's bhakta. It's like a little bit of a O sound that comes there. So amake to je bhakta bhaje jay bhave tare she bhave bhaji e mor swabhave. So this is how a Bengali would read it. I mean, I may not be perfect. Maybe Premikas Prabhu will be getting on my case, but yeah. So it's a little different. Okay, good question. So Sunita Sharma Mataji is asking, do the apps use original books or the changed books? They use the changed books. They don't use the original books. If you want to use the original books, you can go to prabhupadbooks.com. Unfortunately, we don't have an app with the original books yet at this point of time. And sometimes the verses from 11th canto, for example, can't be taken out in an original Veda-based system because Prabhupada did not translate them. So then we have to refer to this again. So as long as you know what is the actual translation and then what is the changed translation, if you have this idea, it's not that, some people have this idea that if you read the changed one, you will go to hell. You're going to hell. That's completely wrong. That means we don't have any faith in Prabhupada, because Prabhupada's words, in fact, even in the original books, there are mistakes. Like 1844, Goraksha was translated as cattle raising, but Prabhupada many times said, no, that is cow protection. So he wanted in the next edition to be changed. So they changed that in the changed version. But of course, there are other changes which are completely unwarranted, unnecessary. They did that also. But mostly, even if they did that, the meaning is not changing much. I don't say that it is good that they have changed. No, it is not good to change the words of a spiritual master, but the damage is pretty minimal. Almost none, but sometimes it is. Of course, a real devotee will get irritated why he has to do that when there is no need for doing that. Unless Prabhupada really asked, like in 1029, chapter 10, text 29 Bhagavad Gita, it was translated as planet of the trees. Actually, it is a planet of the forefathers. So it was translated as a planet of the trees, which is absolutely makes no sense. So these happened in the original books. So these were corrected later on, but they just did these other things which are completely unnecessary. But on the whole, even then, the philosophy doesn't change as much. So the damage is not as bad, although it is completely wrong to try to change the words of the spiritual master. For example, this, especially people with who are reading Bhagavad Gita and all these books in other languages than English. For them, they only have access to the changed versions of it. They don't even have access to the original versions of it. That doesn't mean that they should not read it anymore. No. I became a devotee by reading the changed version. So the potency of Prabhupada is not minimized, although these, some conditioned souls have, made some changes here and there. 99.99% of the book is still the same. And it is said, like in the Narasimha Puran, like the moon has some spots in it, but that doesn't, inhibit the moon from exhibiting its effulgence. So similarly, these may be spots, some people, some of the disciples who have unauthorizedly maybe put some changes here and there, but that doesn't stop Prabhupada from preaching through those books still. Unless the whole philosophy is like turned upside down and everything is like completely changed, and then that is completely, then there are no more Prabhupada's books. But at this point, and especially when we have no access to the original books, especially in languages other than English, we can still make do with the changed versions at this point. So we should not develop this mentality like, oh, you are a demon if you use changed books. You are going to hell. This is hellish mentality. No, it's just that was what was available and that was what was used. That's it. So of course we used the original ones, as you can see here. I used the original ones, but if somewhere somehow for some reason you can't get and you just got hold of the changed one, you will not go to hell. Definitely not. So and tell you honestly, those people who swear by original books, they printed, we know the one who printed it, I don't want to take any names, but he printed it, a version of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, the original one, without the word-to-word meanings. That means, although he's saying original, he has never, obviously, he has never read the original books. Because if he really reads, he will understand that the word-to-word meanings are the real bridge to our understanding of the slokas. That is the main deal. Of course, Prabhupada, the translation, purports, everything is important. But if you want to go deeper and learn the verses, that word-to-word is where it will really help, and that he took out. Now, how to understand the verse now? So then they say it's original. That's definitely not original. That is completely edited. Original means just as Prabhupada has mentioned. So, and one devotee who was actually swearing by the original books, he was giving credit to some ISKCON gurus who have, who have deviated from the order of Prabhupada, and he was glorifying them. So, what is his understanding then? So, it is not about which book you use. Of course, if we have only the changed book version, now in the apps, we only have changed versions. So, what we can do? Oh, don't use the apps. So, then it is easy, convenient to show, right? So, you will not go to hell. You will not. I think all of you have learned so much from this, whatever the screen is here showing. So, yeah, somewhere a little bit here and there changes, but it did not change the philosophy totally. So, keep that in mind always, and let's not be fanatical about it. Let's know that there was a mistake done, yes, and if there is an opportunity which that we can have, somebody can develop, we certainly have no wherewithal at this point of time, and the services that we have, we can't do something like that. And if somebody does an app with original books, yeah, we will use it definitely, whatever is convenient. But then if you want to show a verse from 11th canto or something like that, actually in Nectar of Devotion, so many verses, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many verses are quoted from 11th canto. And Uddhava Gita, in the 3rd canto itself, Prabhupada says there are so many things that Krishna told Uddhava that he did not even speak to Arjuna. Uddhava was even more intimate friend of Krishna than even Arjuna. So, and then he spoke many things there, So these kind of things are all mentioned. So in the purports, and the Prabhupada himself mentioned. So it is good to also understand what happened in the 11th canto, 12th canto, for example. All the symptoms of Kali Yuga are there in the 12th canto. If you say, oh, I don't want to touch 12th canto, it's not done by Prabhupada, the information is there, And actually Prabhupada wanted them to be translated by his disciples, by Pradyumna, but Pradyumna Prabhu was removed from the service and others took over the service, and somehow it was translated, but Prabhupada wanted them translated, but he said for the purport, use the Acharya's commentaries, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who else? Sridhar Swami. These commentaries were used, and much of the purports, even of those shlokas, are translations of the Acharya's commentaries. Sometimes they have added their own thing, you can avoid that. But basically otherwise you have access to the whole, you can have access to the whole book. So anyway, that's again a long-winded answer, but important to have the context. Can we then memorize from 11th and 12th cantos? Yeah, why not? They're all Shastra. We can, of course. So, so that's it. Any more questions? Anything else? Thank you very much for being patient, for sticking out all this while, 2.5 hours. So tomorrow we will look at the Bengali pronunciation, alright? Thank you very much for joining. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.